This is the Tupelo Hardware Company where Gladys first bought an 11-year-old Elvis his first guitar. And it's still family owned and operated. It's on the 4th generation. And Gladys worked as a seamstress here at Reed's. And, so she would have known exactly where this place was and what they had.
Shop and check out this general store. Anything you can think of.
Thank you.
Yeah, y'all just kind of gather around here.
It's also authentic.
It is authentic. I'm tell you what.
Love it.
Welcome. Y'all come on in. Come on down here. Y'all just kind of gather around. Y'all come on over here and gather around. Okay. Y'all want to, you can go back that way a little bit, just get everybody in, and so we can. Come on in, everybody.
I can sit over here. Get out of people's way.
All right.
Get out of the way.
Will.
Right?
Yep. Well, welcome. Glad to have you here. First, let me give you a warning. There's an X on the floor down here. That's where Elvis stood. If you stand on it and fall over and hurt yourself because you're all emotional, we're not responsible. But now you've all been warned, you're welcome to stand on the X.
I always end up on the.
And you stood on it too.
Well,
Oh,
in
yeah,
Sun
welcome.
Studio, I ended up on the X too.
A lady, one of the ladies made a comment, this smells so original. Well, trust me, it is original.
Good though.
This is original.
No, it's.
When Johnny Cash signed on with Sun Records, he made a statement that before Memphis, for him, there was Arkansas. And he also said for Elvis, before Memphis, for Elvis, there was Tupelo. Well, I'm going to add a little caveat to that. Before Memphis and Graceland, for Elvis, there was Tupelo and Tupelo Hardware. Because this is where it literally started. What ended up becoming just the greatest entertainer we've ever seen. And I doubt we'll ever see one like this before. This company started in 1926. It's still owned by the same family, 4 generations. That's very important because it takes a generational family to appreciate a role they played in a very historical moment. What you're standing on, the building you're in here, they built in 1941. Everything's still original. The floors, the counters, the shelving, the tin on the ceiling has never been touched, even the light fixtures. So this is as original as it gets. Now that's important because once again, this generational family had a commitment to keep everything as original as it was on that day in January 1946 when Elvis and Gladys came through that door. So literally what you see down through this way is the same thing they saw in 1946. Nothing's changed. Of course, merchandise has. So he came in, he just turned 11. In October in 1945, one of his teachers convinced him to enroll in or volunteer for a talent contest down here at Fair Park. And he did, and he came in 5th. You know, poor kid had no talent. But anyhow, in January, right after his 11th birthday, they came in, and he had earned some money just doing chores around the area, around the neighborhood. And he came in, he saw a bicycle out front. He said, hey, I want that bicycle, but they couldn't afford it. Very, very poor. So he came back here approximately to this spot. And the reason why we know this, if you walk by, you'll see a gentleman's photograph here on the end of the counter. His name is Forrest Bobo. He was a 20-year employee of the company. And he gave the owners a written and verbal account of what happened that day. So we have everything documented. So what I'm telling you is just not fantasy that we're trying to draw people in here. We stood about that spot there and looked up and saw a rifle like that one, 22 caliber rifle. And he said, oh, I want that. Mom said, oh, you ain't getting that. Now that is an exaggeration, but you get the gist. Well, what is interesting, Mr. Bobo also said, Keep in mind, he was 11 years old. He threw an absolute fit right here in the store. Because Mama never told him no. Because of the twin that had died at birth, she was very protective of him, and she never told him no, but that one time she said, you're not gonna get a rifle. So while he was throwing his little fit right there, and I'm sure he's shaking all over, Mr. Bobo decided, I'm gonna diffuse this, and reaches and pulls out an old shipping box like this. And turns around, sets it down behind this counter, and said, come here, boy, sit down here. Didn't call him Mr. Presley. Said, come here, boy, sit down here. Trying to get him to calm down. He sat down. Mr. Bobo pulls a guitar out of this counter right here, handed it to him, and he just started strumming. He couldn't play anything. Well, Gladys watched him for a while and said, you like that, don't you? He goes, yeah, I do. I don't have enough money to buy this. She said, well, I'll tell you what, if you let our pastor, Brother Smith, teach you a couple of chords, I'll help you buy that. So for $7.90, they changed the history of the world as we know it, and it started right here. And if that hadn't happened, if she'd let him have that rifle, you would not be in here talking to me. Trust me. So that's what happened on that eventful day. Yeah. Now that's about $110 in today's market. Now, this is the original guitar. Right here. This is our 4th generation owner. This is the 3rd generation. This gentleman here is a collector out of Memphis. And to say he's a collector is an understatement. Here recently, he and a partner sold a piano that Elvis had for $629,000. So he is a major player in the Elvis collection. Some of his memorabilia is at Graceland. So he's well known throughout the entire collector's world as one of the major Elvis collectors. But this is the original guitar. It was missing literally from 1955 to 1999. Nobody knew, only 3 people knew where it was. And the quick story about what happened, when Elvis made his first hit recording, that's all right, Mama, he played it on this guitar. A month later, he bought him a new one. Didn't like it, and this was in July. By August, he bought a new one, didn't like it. A month later, he traded in for a Martin D18, which was always his favorite guitar. That guitar sold in 2020 for $1.3 million.
Oh, wow.
But his best friend was Red West, part of the Memphis Mafia. Red got a football scholarship to play football at Jones County Junior College down around Laurel, Mississippi in 1954, in the fall of '54, and didn't have any way to get down there, so Elvis gave him a Model A Ford that he had. And also gave him the guitar, which we don't understand why, but he gave Red as a gift this guitar. He took it down there, played one semester, didn't like college, decided he had to go back to Memphis, didn't have any money. He sold the car for $50, and he gave the guitar to a teammate by the name of Ronnie Williams. Now Ronnie, it's speculated that Ronnie that had loaned him money to get back home to Memphis, and he gave him the guitar kind of as collateral. Now what's interesting about this, Ronnie just put it in a closet. And throughout the years, Red would call him and say, hey, you need to come to Memphis. I want to introduce you to Elvis. He wouldn't go because he was afraid Elvis would find out he had the guitar and want it back. So it literally stayed hidden. Only Ronnie, Red West, and Ronnie's brother Bill Williams knew where the guitar was. In August of 1977, unfortunately, Ronnie went to Florida State on scholarship, and he was a pro prospect. He got injured and couldn't play football anymore, and unfortunately turned into an alcoholic. In August 1977, he had this delusion that he saw Elvis in his kitchen playing blackjack. He had 4 hands of 21 laid out, and he couldn't win, and Elvis was really getting upset. Well, he took that as a sign. He calls his brother Bill and says, you got to promise me something. And evidently he knew his days were numbered because of his problem. He said, you got to promise me something. You're going to get the guitar when I die. Or you're going to inherit the guitar. But you got to promise me you will not tell anybody you have it, sell it, or show it for 21 years after either Elvis dies or I die, whichever comes first. And his brother said, yeah, I promise you I'll do that. We're going to get you some help. Elvis died the next day. This has all been documented.
Oh, wow.
Okay? So Elvis dies. 3 years later, Ronnie is living in Pensacola. And once again, he's going through one of his alcoholic delusions and thought somebody was trying to break in his house to steal the guitar. He starts pulling out his guns and starts shooting up the house, out the windows. The neighbors call the police. They come. They end up getting a gun battle. They shoot him, kill him. So his brother gets the guitar. In 1999, 22 years after Elvis died, 1999, his brother, Bill Williams, decided to start a foundation called the Ronnie Williams Foundation out of Pensacola. And he wrote a book, My Brother Ronnie and the Guitar. And the proceeds were going to fund the foundation to help teach kids, primarily high school and college, the problems of alcoholism. So he had it displayed in his office in 1999. That's the first time it had been seen in public, literally from 1954 to 1999. 2010, he decided to put it up for auction, went to New York with it, put it with an auction house that did auctions like this, placed a minimum bid of $200,000. Nobody bid on it because there was this gap. They call it prominence. There was this gap of who actually had control of the guitar. He brought it back home. Well, the agency or the company that did the auction had dealt with this fella. His name's Larry Moss, and they had dealt with him before. So they called him and said, "Larry, we think this is the original guitar. You've got to get with him and talk to him." He calls him. They talked about 2 or 3 months. Finally, Bill agrees to sell it to Larry. Larry said, "I don't care about the prominence. I'll take a risk on this." So he bought it. He immediately sent it up to Nashville to a company called Gruen and Sons to authenticate the record or the guitar, because once again, the advantage of having a generational business, we still had records here when it was sold. So all that together, they came back and said, yeah, and they even looked at pitch photographs similar to this one of early years and said, yeah, we're about 98% sure it's the original guitar. He still wasn't satisfied. He sat down the Red West and interviewed him for over 2 hours, talking about his life with Elvis and about the guitar, and Red described this guitar to a T. All the scratches and the nuances, so he knew he had the original one. He offered it to Graceland to loan it to him, to display it. They wouldn't do it because it couldn't be 100% verified with documentation. So he does have it in the collection in Memphis. He's in the Scotty Moore collection in Memphis. This picture was made in 2017 here, and he brought the guitar down here and displayed it for people to see it during our Elvis Festival. So that is the original guitar. Now, one more quick story, and I'm gonna let you go off and please take a look at our store. The guitar up here. This has signatures of, this is ours. This has signatures of a lot of his band members and his entourage. But there's one signature up there that is the #1 Elvis fan in the entire world. He's also the #1 unknown Elvis fan in the entire world. If you remember, in August of 2010, there was a mining disaster in Chile. 33 miners were trapped underground at a gold and copper mine. They were trapped for 69 days. 33 of them, they were rescued, most miraculous rescue. It literally was world news. Everybody followed that thing almost every day. There was one miner down there named Edison Pena, P-E-N-A. Couldn't speak hardly any English, but he was a huge Elvis fan. And he had memorized almost every Elvis song in English. So he would entertain the miners while they're trapped underground with his Elvis impersonations and his singing. Well, when they finally got communication down to him, to help boost their spirits, they would ask him, tell us, when you get out, we're going to get you out. What do you want to do when you get out? Well, they talked to him, and he said, I want to go to Graceland. Well, Elvis Presley Enterprises heard about this. They boxed up almost every Elvis song, CD, DVDs, DVD players, CD players, and literally cases of batteries, and flew it down to Chile. And they dropped all that down through the shaft they had bored to send food down to them. So he got it. Well, one of the quests the miners had made is tell us when the sun comes up so they could keep track of the time. He asked, tell me when the sun sets. Now the reason he did that, because he would hold Elvis movie nights and get everybody around the DVDs and play Elvis movies to help them, pass the time, whatever. All right, they get out. Elvis Presley Enterprises flies him to Las Vegas to see an Elvis tribute artist show. He stays at the Hilton, which was before the International. Fly him into Memphis to Graceland, and he was at Graceland on Elvis's birthday, 2011, and he got to cut the birthday cake.
That worked.
Yeah. So they got through it. Of course, he had private tours of everything. They said, "Is there anything else you want to do?" Guess what he wanted to do? Come to Tupelo and see where he was born and where he bought that guitar. So he came in, and if you'll notice, there's a white signature on the black pick guard up there. That's his signature. He came in. It says, "Love to Elvis, Pimp, P-E-N-O." And so that's his signature. So when he came in, they got the guitar down and had him sign it. Wow. So that's my story on Elvis.
Thank you very, very much.
And thank y'all for coming in. Please, we got guitars back there. If you need to take a bunch of guitars home, please take your time, look around, and if we can help you on anything, please don't hesitate to ask us.
This would have been the view that Gladys and Elvis had when they first came in that day.